starting off, I heard that you are a very important person in this horseshoe business. You're the president and the league director of the Enid Area Horseshoe Pitchers Club.
Yep, I've been the league director. This is my 11th year. That means keep the records for the league as far as the scores and whatever wins, losses, and then here about 4 years ago, no one else wanted to be president, so naturally they railroaded me into that, as a lot of groups do. And then lo and behold, about 3 years ago, the gal was going to be our treasurer, decided she didn't want to be, and they said, well, Jim, why don't you be that too? I thought, how many hats can I wear? But how many hats can you trust me with? But so yeah, I'm the president, league director, and treasurer of our local horseshoe pitching club.
So let's talk a little bit about your club. I understand that it is a sanctioned club. Mm-hmm. Tell us what that means.
Well, we're sanctioned through the.
Sounds serious.
We're sanctioned the National Horseshoe Pitching Association,
okay.
And they've been around since the 30s, and I think something like that. And in order to be sanctioned, you got to have the courts built a certain way to their specifications. Okay. The stakes 40 feet apart, and the foul line, and so forth and so on. And so you have to apply for that. And we put some courts in. I wasn't around. And back in '87, a few of the guys have been pitching in some tournaments around the state, and man, we ought to have some courts in Enid. They checked with the city and found a spot out at Meadow Lake, South Meadow Lake, and they put in 12 courts. And about 3 years later, they applied for and got sanctioned. At that time, they put in 4 more courts, and so we have 16 courts. And so we have the most any place in the state. And so that's why people like to come here, because we can get our tournament in without having to have a morning and afternoon squad, particularly when it starts getting hot. And since the court's been out there for 30 years, of course, the cement kind of got dinged up with horseshoes. So about 2 years ago, I approached the Parks Department, and with the city's help, we put in some new courts, updated them, where we got the full pad, full length, full width, full length. And that makes it handicap accessible with wheelchairs, because Special Olympics use our courts.
We'll talk about the wheelchair part.
Okay.
That's all right. No, here in just a little bit. But the sanction part, again, to me just tells all the certification. And you alluded to tournaments. And I think Erin, she's got some inquiring mind.
Yes.
She wants to know about this tournament stuff, because it sounds serious.
Yeah, it sounds like you said you had courts at Meadow Lake. Is that where you host all of your games and all of your tournaments, or
Yes.
are there other courts?
No, that's where our courts are. That's where we put them in, you know.
Where are they at Meadow Lake Park?
South Meadow Lake. You know where they put that new big slide in over there?
Oh, yeah.
It's just right there near it. Mm-hmm. South Meadow Lake.
And that was kind of a lead into one of my questions to help us locate where those the park is. What do you call it? Is it a horseshoe? It's not a horseshoe park, but it's a horseshoe.
It's just horseshoe courts.
Courts, okay, that's
Horseshoe
the court.
courts.
So tell us about the partnership then, since these courts are in place in Meadow Lake Park. Tell us about the relationship with the city of Enid and the Horseshoe Club.
Well, as I kind of jumped the gun on you a while ago, they contacted the city and they said, well, we got a spot over in South Meadow Lake that, and Jerry Woods, I don't know whether he was actually a member of the Parks Department or he just knew some people and visited with them, but he had a portable cement mixer, one of the old crank machine, and so they took it out there and mixed the cement, and basically just, you know, the horseshoe pitchers and maybe a couple of Parks people at that time put in those courts at that time, and but they've been real helpful in putting in these new ones. We really appreciate the new look.
Well, the reason I mentioned that, because the city of Enid, as in the organization, is always interested in partnering with the organizations when they can to really enhance the quality of life. So it's good to know that.
And you already touched on my next question a little bit. You mentioned that you made your new courts handicap accessible. Could you tell us a little bit more about that?
Well, just basically the pads. Like I started to say, the pads are full width, full length, and they're going to run a sidewalk down the middle from each end. They haven't quite done that yet. We've got a few things we've got to touch up to make them the new courts. We plan on having a grand reopening at the state tournament. We're going to host a state tournament, singles tournament this year, Labor Day weekend. And right now our plans are to kind of have the grand reopening at that time. And hopefully everything will be completely in place by that time.
Before we went on the air, Jim, you had mentioned something about kind of a summer league and a fall league. I think you had the two different seasons. Is that it?
We have a 6-week spring league and a 6-week fall league. We just started our spring league about 2 weeks ago. We were supposed to have it a third night this last Tuesday, but didn't have enough guys show up because of conflict, so we canceled and just have to reschedule and move on down the line. But we have a 6-week spring league, 6-week fall league.
So my question is, with these two different 6-week periods, if you will, what is the role of your pitchers club to host these events?
Well, we just try to get the word out, word of mouth,
Okay.
and let people know that we have the league and the Horseshoes. And I was talking to a guy at church here a month ago, and he goes, "That sounds like fun." So he came out and joined the league this spring. So we have some have to leave because of as they get older that they just wear out and they just can't pitch anymore or die off. I mean, they do that.
Yeah.
And
I used those same lines the other day. I was talking to a runner friend of mine. I said, you just kind of retire from running.
You wear out.
You wear out.
You wear out.
I think that was the words I used myself. So, okay, let's talk about some competition.
Yes, I've heard about this thing called the Oklahoma-Kansas border war. What is that about?
Well, that's pitchers from Kansas, pitchers from Oklahoma. We get our gun. No, we
Step off 30 feet.
Yeah,
Okay.
don't shoot to see the whites of their eyes. The first year it was held up at Hudson, Kansas, and then this last fall we hosted it here. And so this is the kind we're just kind of getting it going, and it's just good friendly competition. That's the main thing I want to point out. Horseshoe pitchers are one of the friendliest groups you'll see. Help each other out, encourage each other. Before each game, we decide who's going to pitch first by flipping the shoe like flipping a coin, and you reach out and shake hands. You say, "Have a good game." If you lost the game by 20 points or 40 points, or won by that many, you reach out and say, "Hey, you had a good game." They're just really a friendly bunch. So it's just friendly competition. We kind of we're going to get you, but it's still at the end of the day it's just a good bunch of people.
Well, it's good to know that you're friendly and helpful. I need to borrow $20, by the way.
Okay, I think I have that.
Okay, Jim. Earlier, you'd mentioned about the singles tournament coming up in September. How do people get involved? How do they know about it? Do they have to qualify to be in this tournament in September? How does that all work? At least for that September event.
Well, first of all, you have to be a sanctioned member of the NHPA.
Okay.
Now, there's 3 ways of being a member, and actually for it you have to pay $35, and that pays you for the whole year. Part of that goes to the national, part of it goes to the state. I'm not sure how that breaks down. I haven't followed up on that. I just know it costs you $35 to join. And then to qualify for the state tournament, you do have to have so many other tournaments in so they can kind of decide where you fit in the brackets. They decide where you fit into what class by your ringer percentage to keep track of how many ringers you do per how many shoes. And so you have to have so many tournaments in. I think it's 3 to qualify for the state tournament.
Very good. We're talking horseshoes this morning on Good Morning Enid, and our special guest is Jim Hudson. He's the president, he's the CEO, he's the treasurer, he's everything with the Enid area. Yeah, he's everything with the Enid area Horseshoe Pitchers Club.
I have plenty of help.